how it happened and whether it's going to happen again, and again. Also, Game 1 MVP, Rihanna.
You look toward Rihanna? Was that? I don't even remember that.
Yeah, I think that's not true. Let's go around the horn.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive better. Here's Tony Rielli.
On the scale of fair to not fair, what's this? Everybody's got jokes for J.R. Smith. He's choosing between getting in front of a murderous praying mantis and the greatest shooting chihuahua of all time.
Gotta stop three, baby. Gotta stop
Speaking
three.
of chihuahua, Olay from Steph last night. After a game in which Tyronn Lue called the Warriors the best I ever seen. That's how we started the series we waited our whole lives for. Bomani, you first. Are you hearing Lue say that? And when you hear him say that, that makes you think what? And specifically, what impressed you most about the Warriors last night?
I mean, if he thinks that's the best he's ever seen, that's not even close to the best of the Warriors that we have seen. They didn't shoot well from anywhere, really. Weren't great from two, weren't great from three, weren't even great from the free throw line, but they only turned the ball over 4 times. If they do have a weakness, is that they can get a little bit loose with the ball. They held on to the ball. Cleveland, a team that doesn't force turnovers, couldn't get it from them, but the most impressive thing about the Warriors was their defense. They hold the Cavs to under 40% shooting. You saw big numbers from the big 3 guys for the Cavs and nothing from anyone else. The thing we always have to remember about Golden State is they're as good a defensive team as they are offensive, and there were times they were just taking the ball away from the Cavs. That's where they stood out.
Sarah, you agree with Bomani? Defense was the most impressive thing from Golden State last night?
Well, I understand in television the best thing to do is make a hard and firm choice. But for me, this is a chicken and an egg thing. If you try to commend them on their defense, you're forgetting how much that led to the ease of their offense. If you forget how easy their offense was, then you forget that that's part of the flow and the joy that makes them so effective on defense. So
convenient.
In general, I think maybe the most impressive thing is those 4 turnovers. Because if you're going to play like that team plays and you're going to take care of the ball that well, how are you going to be stopped? Especially when you're playing a team like Cleveland that can't seem to force their own, they can't seem to force you to be less effective on offense, which means that they then have to step up their own offensive game in a way that they are not able to against a team that is this defensively sound. So for me, yeah, chicken and the egg. It's both of them. They feed each other.
Okay, so Bomani says defense, Sarah says the Chegg, and then says their lack of turnovers. How about you, Woody Page?
What is it with these young contestants that are on this show? They can't make a hard, firm decision. It's definitely the defense, Sarah. What game were you watching last night? Bomani's absolutely right. They weren't shooting well. They weren't playing that well offensively, but they shut Cleveland down totally. Do you remember J.R. Smith even coming to the arena last night? He had 1 shot that he made early in the game, and that was it. Did you see anything out of the bench? Is Kyle Culver even in the series anywhere? He was the guy that got to shoot 3-pointers. We're still waiting on that to happen. I mean, really, they played such great defense. They forced the turnovers. They got into passing lanes. They got the rebounds they needed to do defensively and offensively. I mean, it was all about their defense.
Okay.
That was the strength of that team.
And you asked about J.R. Smith. Maybe he left the arena when he went to go cover Steph Curry when Durant is dunking on people. I mean, the amount of dunks in this game, I guess you could say that it's all about their defense playing well, but they were just cranking all over the Cavs, Kevin Blackistone. What impressed you most about Cleveland?
Well, I just mentioned the dunks since you brought them up. 7 dunks in the first quarter for the Warriors. What's that off of? Mistakes by the Cleveland Cavaliers. If there's one thing that stood out to me in this game is one team was playing clean, the other team was riding dirty. And the team that was playing clean was absolutely the Warriors. Not only that, you look at the rotations that they made that were correct. You didn't give up any easy buckets to Cleveland. You look at the way that they passed the ball last night. Sarah mentioned the turnovers that they did not have. Just about everything they did was absolutely right. And isn't it funny how we look at this series and look at last year's series and see that the absence of Andrew Bogut has really changed the fortunes for both of these teams in 2 different ways in 2 different years. It seems that last year the Warriors missed Andrew Bogut when he went down with injury in this finals, and last night it looked like the Cavaliers missed him. You talk about second chance points that the Cavaliers were unable to stop, especially in the first half.
Okay, yeah. I almost forgot Bogut was on the Cavaliers for those 7 minutes that they had him, or 70 seconds, whatever it wound up being. I think Woody needed a translator, by the way, when you said clean and dirty, riding dirty and playing clean.
Let's
let's
avoid
game plan then,
translating
okay?
that.
Because as bleak as you want to maybe make it for the Cavaliers after the way they lost Game 1 last night. I mean, they lost Game 1 last year. They lost Game 2 last year. They lost them by a combined 48 points. So how are you game planning Sunday night, Sarah Spain?
Well, let me preface this by saying we're all using those statistics as a means by which to convince ourselves that this could go the way that last year did. That was a team that had an unhealthy Steph Curry and no Kevin Durant. So trying to compare the two to me is futile. That being said, you have to go out there and show up, do your best, and that entails slowing the game down, taking care of the ball, because if you yourself cannot force turnovers because your defense is subpar, then you are not going to be able to win a game if you are giving the ball up. So take care of the ball, slow the offense down. We all know the Warriors are most effective when they get into that rhythm and that flow and they can push the ball in transition. So I don't think it's going to work, but it'll help.
Well, I mean, I don't think they need to slow the game down necessarily. They play up-tempo. That's the way that they want to play. Now, you can be smarter about the way that you play up-tempo, because one concern I'd had for Cleveland coming into this series is if the Warriors go on one of those runs, is that when you give the ball to Kyrie and he's like, let me just get these buckets right fast to fix everything. Sometimes he does, but if he goes and he misses the bucket, we're going back the other way, and it's a 10 or 12-0 run in a minute and a half. We saw something like that last night. So I do think they need to take better care of the ball, but you need to take better care of the ball while you're still playing the game that you play, which is an up-tempo one. If they try to turn this into a slow it down one, I don't think that Cleveland's equipped for that any better than Golden State is.
Okay. KB,
Well, I mentioned one thing
on that first?
Well, first, one thing I mentioned was rebound. They've got to rebound the ball better. Tristan Thompson may want to join the game on this weekend on Sunday. The other thing they need to do is play much better defense. They look as they've got confused on when to switch, who to switch. Their rotations were horrible. How many times did Curry look up and find a big guy trying to guard him who he could just absolutely go around and pull up for a short jumper? Got to clean up defensively.
Woody Page.
Well, I know you don't like references to sports. Let's start with this, though. They've got to have more odd man rushes like we're seeing in the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, really, even when they broke, that's why I think that Sarah's right. I think you got to slow the pace down, because they weren't, even when they were fast breaking, it wasn't 3-on-2, it wasn't 4-on-3. They were in a situation where they weren't able to spread the floor. That's what you got to do. You do have to get the ball to JR more often. I mean, he is your strength from the three-point line, and then you spread the defense a little bit more. They've got to put Curry in better, weaker defensive positions. They didn't really take advantage of it except one time when he got lost last night and LeBron was wide open, didn't even know it. So you got to take advantage of the fact that Curry's not really a very good defensive player. And second, Thompson, go to the boards. You can't let them have all those offensive rebounds. You don't have to give us any scoring, but at least control the boards when they're taking those bad shots and when they're missing. And the other thing you got to do is, LeBron, you've got to be the best player in the world.
Man, I mean, you know your magnum opus on the 17 things they need to do to get back into the series. You know, you brought up one thing. Everyone else addressed what the Cavs need to do on offense. Let's talk about what the Cavs need to do on defense, because you saw how they approached the first half, right? They were guarding all the three-point shooting. What did it lead to? All those dunks by Durant and the Warriors. And then in the second half, they start to clog up the middle, and what happens? You get all the three-pointers. Can they even win in this way? Bomani Jones, address that first.
I mean, defensively, I thought they played fairly well. They held Golden State to 42% shooting. I don't think that's where the problems wound up coming from. Where they had problems on defense is once you turn the ball over and you go in transition, it isn't about your defense anymore. It's about how fast you can run back the other way. But I didn't feel like defensively, outside of Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, who for Golden State did anything offensively.
KB, to you, does it seem like it's a lose-lose proposition? Either you clog up the middle or you got to go out to the outside?
I'd much rather force them to take long three-point shots. I mean, they have a lesser chance of going in. That's what you do. And if you remember back to the series last year, they started missing some of those shots. Obviously, you have to defend it a little bit better, but you can't give up quick, easy buckets and have them have so many possessions
Sarah, you agree with that?
over yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, of course, we understand you don't want to allow those kickouts for threes. 3 points are more than 2. But on the other hand, you have to make that shot. And Klay Thompson can't hit the broadside of a barn. So you're leaving it up to actually make them make the three instead of letting Durant take 2 steps from half court and dunk from there.
The greatest three-point shooting team in the history of three-point shooting teams. You guys want them to take more threes. Since you brought up Klay Thompson.
More than 8 open dunks.
Do you want to try to fix them on offense, Sarah Spain? Or is that even necessary because he's providing something on defense for the Warriors?
Well, yeah, there was a great stat that his dad actually pointed out that the Cavs were just completely ineffective when he was the primary defender against them. So if you're getting that out of him and you're managing to get enough from the other guys, then I guess you don't need to worry quite as much about what his offensive failings are. On the other hand, this is the first game of a 7-game series, and we saw last year how some of the people who were so effective managed to be figured out by the Cavs in a way that made those other guys step up. So for now, I'm not going to say don't fix it, but stay on defense at least.
How about you, Woody Page?
Birds got to fly, fish got to fry, and shooters got to keep shooting, and that's what he's got to do. You just showed that he went to the basket once. He needs to go to the free throw line. He's a great free throw shooter, and he's not going to be doing that sitting out there. But you got to remember this. He's exerting so much energy on defense against him. They were 1 for 12, the Cavs were, when he was the primary defender. So he is, as I said, he is doing what's most important, I think, for them, because they've got plenty of other guys that can score. But he needs to go to the basket more offensively.
Bomani Jones?
I mean, look on defense, man. He's out there looking like Spider-Man. Like, nobody can get around him. His arms are so long and he moves so well laterally. He's one of the best defensive players in the league, and he jumped off the screen. The offense thing, though, he's been bad all postseason. We're talking about shooting well below 35% from three-point range so far. But remember, the NBA Finals last year, he only shot 35% from three. That's not bad for most people, but this offense hums on the idea of him shooting somewhere in the neighborhood of 40%. You leave him out there, you let him shoot, but then you also at some point just realize, why does he get so yippy when he gets anywhere near the paint? Like, when it's time for him to shoot a layup, he's like, hey, wait a minute, that's not what they pay for me to do here. And he's looking around and taking bad shots that should be great.
KB after the horn.
Maybe stop drinking from Harrison Barnes' water bottle? I don't know. Look, he needs to keep shooting the ball. That's absolutely true. But you know what? We said that somebody would be the odd man out when Kevin Durant got there. And although he's getting the same number of shots, maybe he's not getting the same shots in the same rhythm that he used to get before Durant.
You can't make it 3 feet from the rim. You ain't blaming that on no Kevin Durant.
Next time I see you guys, we'll have a game too. So tell me how it's going down. Make a pick in this game, Woody Page.
The Warriors are going to win by even more as they did last year.
Spain?
Warriors.
Bomani?
Cavs, why not?
Pakistan.
Warriors at home.
All right, taking a break right here. Buyer Salts next as we go to break here. Look at Durant's toughest competition this series. It's Rihanna. Do you believe him when he said he doesn't remember staring down Rihanna?
No.
Thank you, Woody.
Around the Horn is brought to you by the 12-hour pain-relieving strength of Elite and Xfinity. Experience TV like never before with Xfinity X1.
Nashville Predators, 4 goals on Pittsburgh, 2 goals on themselves. Pekka Rinne, so good for the first 2 months of his postseason. Cheesecloths, first 2 games of the Stanley Cup Final. Series moves to the house. Carrie Underwood of the house. Catfish built. Does Pekka Rinne move with it, Woody Page?
Oh, I'm selling that. Pekka Wood says Pekka Rinne stays in goal. The guy was the Conn Smythe leading guy going into this series. So 3 of the puck goals that he gave up bounced off of teammates. You were going home, you want this guy in goal. You don't want to go to the other guy from Finland. Trust me.
Dane?
Pekka Rinne's save percentage has gone down every single series since the start of the playoffs. He has never started and won a game against the Penguins. The Penguins, on the other side, have flipped from Fleury to Murray. We saw it in years past with Darling and Crawford. You need to play the hottest goalie, and if your goalie's not hot right now, you can take him out, you can put him back in, but it's time to pull him.
Bomani Jones?
Well, the tricky thing is that the adage is that you go with the hot goalie, but we are still talking about what are relatively small samples. We're talking about 8 goals on 36 shots, which is awful, but the sample is still small. Do you go away from the guy that got you all the way this far? I don't think you do it just yet.
Baby.
Dance with the one who brung you. And you know what? They got this far with him. I would not switch right now. As Woody pointed out, a couple of those goals were not his fault. He knows he's supposed to be looking out for the guys in dark jerseys, not the guys in light jerseys.
All right, tomorrow night, make a pick. Again, you guys aren't going to mute yourselves, KB.
Penguins.
Jones? Predators. Every pick you make is like, I haven't even considered making a pick. Go ahead, Spade.
Predators.
Page.
Catfish.
Buy or sell 2, Adam Silver. Silver thoughts. Wants the NBA to reconsider allowing players into the league at 18 and out of high school again. And he wants arenas to free up more dates so teams could have longer homestands so there'll be fewer back-to-backs and D&P rests. Sarah, you buying?
I'm confused by Silver's hand. I'm not buying that they were a different color than his face in that Photoshop. You might want to revisit the Photoshop. I'm actually not buying either of these. I'm buying the part about getting rid of the one and done rule. I think they need to use the newly appointed G League as a minor league system. If teams want to take players and they're not ready yet, then let them develop there. Don't force them to go to college. Allow the agency to be with the player. And as far as letting stadiums give you more days, I think that's going to be really tough to handle with places that are dealing with concerts and other teams and such. What you need to do is decide if you're greedy enough to never want to give up any games, then you just have to accept that teams are going to rest and they're going to play the way they need to.
So you're buying the one and done change coming to the NBA. You're selling the idea that they can get arenas to fix their rest problem. Bomani,
Yeah,
how about
that's
you?
right. Yeah.
Well, see, I'm buying the idea that the one-and-done change will come to allow guys to come straight from high school, but I'm selling that that's quite what Adam Silver said. I thought he gave himself a lot of leeway to go in either direction, and in previous years he said he would prefer raising the age limit to 20, which I am totally opposed to. But I'm also a guy that thinks they need to get rid of the draft and just hand out contracts, and it'll all work itself out.
Yeah, you are. You are a little extremist would be the word, or maybe that's not even the word. You're
I am
radical?
American. It's
American. Okay,
That's
yeah.
what it is.
Black and Stone, how about you?
Exactly. I concur with what Bomani just said. And anyway, you know, the one and done is a restraint on labor. I think we need to get rid of that. I've always been against it. And as far as the idea about arenas, you know what? That's going to be tough to do with all the other events that go on in arenas. You want to do something? Cut the preseason in half and start your season earlier than in mid-October rather than as late as you do.
40 page.
One and done should be done. If players want to go from high school, they should be able to do that. In regard to the arenas, which is a passionate issue for me, you're going to tell arenas that are municipally owned and were funded by taxpayers, oh, you got to give us more dates. Even though in a lot of those arenas, they're outdrawn by the National Hockey League. There are about a dozen cities that share both teams.
Is that right?
You can't do that. Yeah. So what you need to do is
In cities that share an NBA and an NHL team in the arena, the NHL team outdraws?
in a lot of the cases, yeah. Philadelphia, for instance.
Research to the show. Okay. Fire Cell 3. Chris Paul and the Spurs. It's not going away. Tuesday marks Stein, San Antonio's interest. Today, Chris Paul's interest. Serious consideration in the event he decides to leave the Clippers. Bomani, how do you read that?
It's just about how bad he wants that money. The decision to leave the Clippers is the decision to walk away from the bread, but they're not going to win championships there. If he wants to win, San Antonio is probably the best chance that he has to do it. He'll just have to walk away from tens of millions of dollars.
KB?
You realize he's been with the Clippers as long as he was with the Hornets and how much more playoff successes he had there than he had there. It's time for him to find a new place to play, and the Spurs would be perfect.
Woodrow.
Well, so the Spurs are going to end up with Kyle Lowry and Chris Paul and play point guard. But I think he should consider all the possibilities. If he wants out of L.A., then San Antonio would be a great place for him to go and really win a championship.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You have to give up the $205 million Bo and take $152 instead. A lot of players aren't willing to do that. This is a guy, though, whose legacy hangs on whether he makes it out of the second round. He's a great fit with Pop. They're tough on their teammates. They're gritty. They hold people accountable. And San Antonio is a great place to believe you got 8 years left if you're already 32, right? Because we've seen enough guys in that place play for a long time.
Spain and Jones getting their freeze frame right here. Take the picture while we're talking. Take the picture while we're talking. Act like we're talking. Take the picture. Here we go.
No, I'm acting like this.
Spain, Black and Stone. Showdown next.
It's a nail biter here in Indy. No OT tonight.
Layer of creamy almond.
Around the Horn is brought to you by Xfinity. Experience TV like never before with Xfinity X1.
Page, Black and Stone. Showdown. An ejection for arguing a call. Umpires initially ruled bat boy interference and then changed to not bat boy interference after the bat boy interfered or not interfered with the pop-up. Terry Collins got beef, or I'm not even mad. That's amazing, Woody Page.
I am all for the umpires getting this right. It's a rule in baseball. I mean, they used to have bullpens that are actually on the playing field, and they still do in Wrigley Field, where the players are scrambling around. You've got umpires that are involved in plays. There's unintentional interference.
Yeah, but why put all this on that kid? He was trying to get out of the way. He was only doing his job out there in the first place. I don't understand why there just aren't ground rules to cover bat boys and bat girls in the game, period.
Okay, I think I'm buying Woody Page's answer here, though. I mean, the kid was trying to get away. I mean, so that's enough for me. Cubs, by the way, their bullpens are now off the field. We'll move on. Marlins attendance at national anthem. Marlins attendance at the end of the game. 1,590 humans for the day game. Baseball got beef with the Marlins, or I'm not even mad. That's amazing, KB.
I'm not mad. That is amazing. Look, that's not even attendance, those few numbers. But you know what? It's baseball in South Florida. It's always been bad. It's even bad in Tampa Bay. What do you expect? People don't like it for whatever reason.
Kevin, you're absolutely right, but it's day games, too. I went to one at Coors Field here earlier in the season, and if I'd have counted, it was about 500. On those getaway days, don't have day games.
That's the whole point of a getaway day. You have the day game so you can get away, though, Woody Page. I'm not even mad. It's amazing that you lost the lead. FaceTime, Kevin Blackistone.
Airplane.
I just want to point out something. A couple of years ago, the NHL produced a report about the impact of its sport on the environment and the impact of the environment on its sport. And they were very concerned that changes in the climate would impact frozen ponds that produce all the athletes, and so many of them that play in their sports. So don't think that what is going on right now in the discussion about climate change doesn't also affect sports.
Here we go, Kevin Blackistone. We're on a 71.5-hour break.